Welcome to Biohacking Beauty. I'm Amitai Eshel, and here we explore science backed ways to rejuvenate skin and enhance your natural beauty from within. Whether you're a biohacking enthusiast or just looking to optimize your skin health, you're in the right place. Today, we're joined by an incredible guest, William A. Moore. William is a board certified expert in hormone health, anti aging, and regenerative medicine. He has actually a few hats, which we've covered on this podcast. At Advanced U, he specializes in helping people optimize their health and appearance through cutting edge modalities and biohacks. Additionally, he's the mind behind PhalloFILL, a company dedicated to providing safe, effective male enhancement procedures through advanced, minimally invasive technique, which he patented. Very, very interesting. In this episode, William will take us on a deep dive into how anything from habits to hormonal health impacts skin aging. We spoke about the latest advancements in biohacking, which kind of bleed into regenerative medicine, and practical biohacks that can make a real difference in how you look and feel. We also covered his incredible advancement and innovation in male enhancement. And we also covered some kind of science around fillers, dermal fillers. So it was really an incredible podcast. I'm so happy we had him on. Of course, like every episode, this podcast is brought to you by Young Goose Skincare, where we're committed to merging skincare with biohacking for truly effective, youthful results. So let's get started with William A. Moore and uncover the science behind biohacking your beauty and some other things from the inside out. All right, William, welcome to the Biohacking Beauty podcast.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm here in sunny Mexico, enjoying my week, relaxing, much needed.
Very good. Maybe you'll see me waving. We're in Florida, so we're just across the
Across the
pond.
Gulf, yeah.
Well, as I told you off air, we get a lot of people that are pitched to be on the podcast, and normally we respectfully decline. But I was actually really impressed by kind of your journey, what you have done, kind of your life's mission, and I'm actually super excited to have you on. So, yeah,
Nice. We're gonna have a good time.
yeah. So, before we kind of dive into specific things, I really wonder what was the path that led you to be like a hormone and anti-aging expert.
So, I'm gonna go back to 2010. 2010. I had a physician that was working at my med spa that wanted to introduce testosterone replacement therapy. And at the time, testosterone replacement therapy was not accepted in the medical community. Like your urologist and your primary care provider would not prescribe you testosterone therapy basically under any circumstance, because they had been taught in medical school that testosterone replacement therapy would cause you to have cancer, prostate cancer, within months.
Yeah.
And that's what was taught in medical schools. And I read a book that was called Testosterone for Life that I recommend anyone that has any questions or concerns about testosterone replacement therapy read this particular book. It's on Amazon. It has a yellow cover, Testosterone for Life. But it talked about the way that this particular urologist had uncovered the benefits of testosterone replacement therapy, which was exactly opposite of what he had been taught in medical school. And it talks about how he found a medical journal that they were teaching on, and the medical journal actually only had one patient in it that was published. And anyway, so we started offering testosterone replacement therapy in 2010. And then I think around 2011 or 12, the Veterans Affairs published a huge study with 82,000 men on testosterone replacement therapy, showing the benefits of the group that was highly optimized versus the group that was middle and low optimized, or actually the low had no optimization.
Yeah.
And then the middle group had where they were optimized with creams and topicals and so forth.
Hmm.
But anyway, so that's sort of where my journey started. And that's also around the time that my journey into men's sexual medicine started.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've heard of a procedure that's called the P shot. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So the P shot was originally called the Priapus shot, and I was the very first person that Dr. Charles Runnels, who owns the name the P shot, he developed the procedure. He taught me the P shot in his home in Fairhope, Alabama, in 2010. And so I was doing P shots with him, collecting information before he launched this to the masses, which now everyone offers P shots,
Hmm.
and most men have heard of them. So that's sort of where my journey started, and then through the years, it's just morphed. I used to own med spas. I had at
Yeah.
one time I had 4 med spas, and my biohacking interest, wellness interest, and then the girth enhancement interest had risen so much, but the priority was so much higher for me than what the aesthetics industry was,
Yeah.
because there's a med spa on every block now. When I opened, I was the fifth med spa in Dallas to open,
Wow.
and now there's 5 on every block. So I was in there from actually when I opened, the term med spa had not ever been used. We were just like anti-aging clinics at the time, or laser clinics. So I've been in this for a bit, and I've seen everything progress as I've been part of this industry.
That's so interesting. First of all, it's funny because med spa has, I mean, it's a kind of an oxymoron because you're not really practicing more medicine than any other spa. It's just supervised by a medical doctor, if you would. But I think earlier attempts were really to try and explain to people what's inside by the name, right? Like laser, laser clinic or whatever that is. Um,
Yeah.
Interesting. So I wonder, was the incentive, or was the motivation entering the field of like regenerative and integrative medicine and biohacking was just because you understand there needs to be more differentiation? You saw where the field is going. Like, what was the motivation there?
Um, I have a degree in exercise physiology, so my master's is in exercise physiology. So I always had an interest in making people healthier and making people live
Yeah.
longer through at that time it was using treadmills and
Yeah.
weights training. That's what we had. That was our biohacking. That's what we had at the time.
Mhm.
But there's been some things along the way, some personal things along the way that I have type 1 diabetes. I'll share that with you. So I have juvenile
Mhm.
diabetes. I've had that for the majority of my life. And with that comes some things that can shorten your lifespan. And
Yeah.
so I was always looking for ways to make sure that I was taking the best care of myself and that I was making sure that I had the most longevity possible. And so a little bit of this was probably selfish. That I
Yeah.
was, looking for myself. Another big impact that had on me was my mother was diagnosed at an early age with dementia, which now has progressed into dementia, Alzheimer's, and so we don't know where that came from. My mother never drank any alcohol. She never did any drugs. It doesn't run in her family.
Hmm.
It scared me, and so that made me start thinking about the possibility of that may be in my future as well. And so there's just been a few things like that that sort of inspired me. But overall, I just really want to help people. And for 20 years, it was helping people look better, but now, through my biohacking and my wellness and longevity, I like to think that I'm making people look better, feel better, and perform better.
Yeah.
So I still have an aspect of the aesthetics, but I believe that you look better when your mitochondria is functioning properly, and when there's a reduction in your inflammatory responses in your body. And so I'm just doing it in a different way now, rather than using Botox and dermal fillers.
That's beautiful. And so, along that lines, like, how would you How would you explain the way that your practice now approaches beauty and health? By integrating like biohacking, anti-aging treatments, hormone balancing. Like, what is the approach now in order to, at the end of the day, have a person that presents themselves to the world in a better way?
Well, that is a tough question you just gave me. So, um, many of the modalities that I offer do have some very particular anti-aging benefits for the
Hmm.
outward appearance of your body. So,
Yeah.
so my red light bed, and I call it a red light bed, is actually red, and it has three different beams of near infrared light. And I know that
Okay.
you understand what this is, but if you would like for me to explain it to your
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
audience, I
Please
will.
do.
So yeah, so red light is generally in the mid. Let me go back a
Yeah.
step. So light. If you go back to your high school physics, you remember the rainbow of light. And so we have Roy G. Biv. And each different letter in that alphabet represents a different color. So we're speaking about the actual light that's red, and that's around 600, it's in the mid 600 nanometers of light. That particular beam of light has been known for about 20 or more years to increase mitochondrial activity in the skin,
Hmm.
which will improve collagen production. And so
Yeah.
when you go in to have a spa treatment, a lot of times if you have a microneedling or if you have a chemical peel, or if you just have a regular facial, they'll finish the procedure with a red light session. And I
Hmm.
actually have a red light device at my home, and I've had it there. I probably have had one for 10 years. And so I very regularly get under the red light when I'm watching TV or listening to a podcast or whatever I may be doing to
Hmm.
stimulate my collagen production at home. I think it's a great device. There's a lot of
Yeah.
at-home devices now, and I think that you should be very leery of those because I look at them and they've got like 5 lights or 10 lights that are covering a mask that you put on your face. I mean, the one that I have at home has got lights, like three. Well, the lights are touching each other. There is it's a solid
Yeah.
pattern of lights. So they're much more powerful than what you can buy on Amazon. So be leery of
Yeah.
those. Don't waste your money on those. But and then as we move up in the spectrum of light, we get light that becomes near invisible, or it is
Yeah.
invisible light. It's near infrared, and those beams penetrate deeper into the tissue. They can penetrate into the muscles, they can penetrate into the organs, and even into the bone. And so
Hmm.
we get up into the 830s, the 870s, and maybe the 920 range. And so the light now is able to penetrate past your skin because red light can only get into your skin,
Yeah.
and it can get past your skin, and it can increase mitochondrial activity and decrease inflammation in your muscles, organs, and in your bone. And so
Yeah.
we can do what's happening in your skin all the way down through. But that is one of the things that we're going to see some of the most visible changes. But I also do things like adaptive resistance strength training. And I use a device, it's called ARX Fit. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
you've seen that device, but
Yeah.
it is an incredible device. It's my favorite strength training that I've ever seen. It's
Very
all that
difficult.
it's all that I use now. I don't go to the gym any longer.
Wow.
I just use my ARX, and I'm very fit, and I'm 50, and my body looks the same that it looked when I was as young as I ever have been. And so and so I love the ARX Fit. So I'm able to make someone look better, so it's
Hmm.
looking better doesn't always happen. It doesn't have to be the wrinkles around your eyes. It doesn't have to be the
Hmm.
texture of your skin. Um, it can be your skin's glowing.
Hmm.
Because you've spent some time in my red light bed and you've had some
Hmm.
cryotherapy sessions, and your muscles are bulging under your shirt, and then your biceps are bulging because you've had my ARX Fit. So there's lots of different ways. We have metabolic testing. Are you familiar with Penile metabolic testing?
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I offer that. So I love to do the Penile metabolic testing, and I don't charge for those. When I first
Wow.
started, I was, that my idea was that I was going to charge for these metabolic tests, and then I realized that people just need to have them.
Hmm.
And sometimes the cost can be a factor, and people they may skip that because they think that it's not as important for them to know what their metabolism is like, or to know how much oxygen is being utilized in their brain, which I think is
Yeah.
really important to know. And so we just stopped charging for those. And if somebody's coming in and using our program, we just give them that because it's such an important tool. And then we can have a baseline, and we can determine what's changing with them over the course of their 6-month program
Yeah.
um, with our biohacking systems. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did, and you did very well. I actually wonder, do you ever try to? I need look. I actually come from the red light therapy field, and I remember when we really had this device in our hand, whether it was in a panel in the beginning, we tried different modalities, and we had to explain to people why it's going to be good for them at home because we were basically a laser company trying to pivot to consumer goods. And I remember going through different things like brain or thyroid or muscle pain, and people would maybe nod, and then you would explain to them it's good for their skin, and you would have this kind of aha moment. And a lot of people are just motivated by looking good. Do you ever have that with things, for example, like the Panoi, or I would assume you're also training people on different types of VO2 max than enhancing products? Maybe you have like um like a hyperoxic training device or something like that. Do you ever tell people, hey, at the end of the day, you're going to look better?
So my motto all around the clinic is look better, feel better, perform better.
Yeah,
And so yes, so of course I have something that will increase, hyperoxygenate their tissue, that take their
yeah,
hypoxic tissue. We use exercise with oxygen, which I know that you're
yeah,
familiar with that. So they're on a bicycle and they're exercising, doing 3 sprints, and they're breathing with a mask with a full tank of oxygen. And it can't just be an oxygen concentrator like what you see someone that's walking around with that needs to have oxygen, because that doesn't deliver enough oxygen for someone to be able to keep up with their
yeah,
oxygen demands. So it's a big tank that fills, and then they drain the tank during the course of their 15-minute exercise session. But I also really like the hyperbaric oxygen chamber for getting
yeah,
oxygen into the tissue. And I mean, I don't even know that I can even begin to talk to you in the amount of time that you and I have today of all the benefits of an HBOT system. I mean, you can get
yeah,
into a rabbit hole on the internet with peer-reviewed studies about what can change in your body with HBOT, from telomeres to um, reducing your chances of dementia to soft tissue wounds
yeah,
to inflamed joints. I mean, you name it, pushing oxygen into that hypoxic tissue, even hair. There's published
yeah,
studies that show hair restoration using hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So,
yeah.
I
Even
mean,
a hair color.
yeah, I mean, that is my absolute favorite treatment that I have in my clinic. I feel like everybody should be getting into a hyperbaric training session, a hyperbaric therapy session.
It also, one of the things that comes to mind with everything that you are talking about is that there is a little bit of a shift in the paradigm of, I would say, how often people kind of need to frequent a longevity clinic or optimal performance clinic, depends, the verbiage you use. But normally, we are used to think that we need to like visit our esthetician like once a month or every couple of months. It seems like with your approach, there should be at least a kind of a time where people should frequent your facility quite often. No?
Well, so it depends on what their goals are and what they're doing
Yeah.
outside of my clinic. So
Hmm.
I have a program where they can come in and they can do things twice a week, or they can do things
Hmm.
once a week. And whichever program they're on, they can buy a la
Yeah.
carte options where they can come in, they can do red light bed every single day
Yeah.
for a fraction of what red light bed should cost you,
Yeah.
or cryotherapy. But if they're doing strength training with ARX system, I think you said that you're familiar with it. We don't
Yeah.
allow anyone to do more than 2 training sessions per week on the ARX, because your muscles are so the muscle fibers are blown out
Yeah. You
after
can
the
develop
session.
rhabdo.
What'd you say?
You can have rhabdomyolysis. You can start breaking down your muscle tissue.
Yeah. So we want. I think that one of the most overlooked problems in strength training is that people don't allow themselves enough recovery time. And
Yeah.
so they're working chest one day or chest and tris one day, back and bis the next day, legs, whatever their workout routine is, but they do it every day.
Hmm.
So they never fully give their body a chance to recover. So I
I
really feel
agree.
like 48 to 72 hours in between a nice heavy workout session where you do nothing is important. And those are the days that I like for someone to come in and do my meditation bed in between a workout program so that their body can relax and it can actually recover. And our meditation bed has 4 transducers in it that are made to work with your brain, your muscles, and then it has soundtracks. And you can choose particular tracks with different ohms. And a lot of
Mm.
people really know a lot about the ohms, and they know that
Hmm.
270 hertz is going to do this to my body, and 727 is going to do this to my body. But if I combine these two, then I'm going to get this benefit. And so all of our soundtracks tell exactly what the music is going to do for your body, and then it causes the bed to work in synchrony with the music. And so we can really do a lot of recovery for the body. And then we also have cryotherapy. So those are some things that I like to alternate in between those breaks. But to answer your question, 1 or 2 times per week with the exercise with oxygen, with the strength training using ARX, and
Hmm.
then we can add in extra cryos and extra red lights and meditation bed, so forth as needed. I mean, the meditation bed is something that I think most people would like to do every day if they could,
Hmm.
because it's really the only way that I've ever seen for people who just cannot turn their brain off
Yeah.
to be able to actually turn their brain off. Because we have tracks that can be like guided meditation tracks that are is intended to make you forget about your problems and whatever's
Beautiful.
happening to you that day. And we really don't take enough time. We're always walking around with cell phones in our hands, and we're
Yeah.
never disconnected. I can't think of a time in the past 15 years that I was disconnected from work, because I got my cell phone on me at all times. It doesn't matter if I'm on a cruise in the Mediterranean Sea. Um, I'm I'm getting
Yeah.
information shoved at me just like I was at work.
Yeah, it's funny. You're right. The first thing that people ask, we were speaking with someone about a cruise in the Mediterranean. They're like, "Yeah, don't worry, there is satellite,
Yes.
connectivity." That's the first thing they tell you. So I completely agree. And you actually answered another question that I had, which is, it sounds like your practice is very high tech. I was wondering if you integrate any like holistic patient care, but it seems like you do. The meditation bed would be one of them. It seems like that is part of what you are trying to combine. Am I correct?
I think that holistic is a huge component in the wheel of
Yeah.
wellness, and is oftentimes overlooked. And so I did want to have something that was available for people who don't know how to do that. I mean, you know how to do that, but I bet a
Yeah.
lot of your listeners don't really know how to do it. And learning to meditate can take a long time
Yeah.
to actually be able to get benefit from meditation. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to go meditate today, and you all of a sudden you get. I mean, yes, it's good to calm down, but you may not be able to separate your brain from your work for months or years once you
Yeah.
start learning to meditate. So I love the meditation bed for that reason, is that you don't have to be a pro at meditation to be able to take your mind off of your daily stresses, whether it be family, whether it be
One
work, whether
hundred
it be whatever
percent.
problem you have going on. We can help you with that.
100%. A lot of the times when people talk with me about, things like, cortisol face, or, oh, I'm low on, you name it, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, whatever. Many time I tell them, yes, there are many solutions for that, and I want to talk about them in a second. But I think the most important thing is to try to find a way to disconnect and to regulate your sympathetic and parasympathetic modes that you get into, because that is how you burn out your hormonal balance.
I'm trying to, it's like what they say, the cobbler's shoes had no shoes. Is
Yes.
that the term? So So there's a few things that I'm very religious about doing at my clinic. You know, and my lunch hour, if my H spot is available, I will get in and I'll return my
Hmm.
emails, or I'll do whatever I got to do. I'll chart my patients,
Hmm.
and I can sit in there for 60 minutes. Or at the end of the day, I could do that. I'm very good at strength training because I like to do that.
Hmm.
I'm not great at doing cardio. I know that that's a fault, and that's something that I have got to work on myself. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I'm trying to get personally, I'm trying to get into the habit of a daily routine of using something like Brain Tap.
Yeah.
So I have we have a membership for Brain Tap for the clinic. I can log into Brain Tap on my phone. I can use a headset at my house to listen
Hmm.
to the tracks. I don't have to have the actual set on me with the LED lights and so forth. And I have a PEMF mat that I sleep on. And so my
Hmm.
PEMF mat is the time to come on at night when I get in bed, and it is a program that calms my body. And
Hmm.
then it's programmed to come on an hour before my alarm clock goes off, and it's a rejuvenating program that is supposed to charge my body for the
Yeah.
day. So I'm going to try and get into the habit of doing some brain tap to try and calm my alpha.
Yes.
A lot of alpha activity that needs to be calmed down. I'm always thinking about things too much and thinking about the
Yeah.
future and worrying about things and anxiety. There's a lot that goes on to being, a business owner when you have a lot of irons in the fires.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got to be better as well. I tell people how to be better, but I have to do it better myself.
I completely agree. I mean, it's when Yangus was starting, and obviously there was a lot of stress around that. I, you know, one of the things that is incredible about BrainTap, and shout out to Dr. Patrick Porter, a good friend of mine, um, is that I, similar to you, I was burning out a lot of my stress with working out. Um, but you can only do it to a certain point, as you said. Like, you cannot just decide to work out for the second time that day, for a day, day in, day out, just give it 100%. It doesn't work like that. Your body's going to fail. So BrainTap was one of the modalities I used in order to find something else to kind of manage stress levels, because as an entrepreneur, it is impossible to just decide you are not going to get stressed off of stuff. You need to foresee the future. You need to have contingencies, and that includes stressing out about some of them.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that is the biggest downfall I think of entrepreneurs
yeah,
is the ability to delegate and disconnect.
yeah,
Um, we want to do everything ourselves because we know that it's done right when we do it ourselves, and we don't want to disconnect.
yeah, 100%. Well, touching on hormones, I do. This is one of the things that you mentioned, and the mentioned that I think, like many people in the anti-aging field, that was kind of a conduit to their larger journey into anti-aging or longevity. I'll give you an example. I think in A4M, the American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine, probably
Right.
90% of people are basically hormone hormone replacement clinics that are looking to introduce other things into the clinic. So I completely get that.
Yeah.
How do you see how do you see the lack of hormones or decline in hormone levels, and the supplementation of exogenous hormones like estrogen, testosterone, growth hormone, etc., impact skin health? Whether it is elasticity, hydration, overall youthfulness. Is it something that you tie in together in your practice?
So let me tell you. So my this is unfortunate for me. So for
Hmm.
20 years, when I had my med spas, I was in a location or four locations that did not have any restrictions on the
Hmm.
services that I could perform.
Hmm.
And when I moved into the new location when I sold my last med spa and I moved into and I opened up Advanced U, which is my biohacking human
Yes.
performance, a clinic that also does my FhalloFILL penile growth enhancement procedure.
Hmm.
When I signed the lease, I had not really decided to evolve into this human enhancement, human performance biohacking clinic. I had bought a
Hmm.
hyperbaric oxygen chamber because
Hmm.
my mother had dementia. And again, it was a
Yeah.
selfish purchase. It was a purchase that was going to be for me. But I also thought that my men who I was treating for Falafel could benefit from it because, I think that that's a great treatment for erectile dysfunction or for
Yeah.
maintaining sexual health. I think it's a great way
Yeah.
to push blood into the penis. And
Yeah.
then I went to A4M and I ran into because I go to A4M every year, and
Yeah.
this particular year I was at the trade show booth. I had a booth for PhalloFILL, and
Hmm.
I ran into Da Vinci Medical,
Yeah.
and I decided that I needed to have superhuman protocol, and
Hmm.
so I think that I bought the suit. Excuse me.
Don't worry, everything can be edited out. You can cough
Perfect,
your heart out.
perfect. I don't know why my throat has been so crazy today. So I ran into Da Vinci Medical
Hmm.
at the A4M and fell in love with the idea of this separating red blood cells with the PEMF mat
Yeah.
by making the blood cells negatively charged so that they're
Hmm.
exposed to oxygen, and then doing 10 to 15 minutes of cardio with the oxygen mask on, and then
Hmm.
going directly into the light bed, which is red light and three beams of near infrared. And
Yeah.
then when I did that, I had a patient who came in that told me about he had just used this piece of equipment called ARX. ARX was an
Yeah.
A for him. And so I started looking into ARX. I said, "Oh my God, I gotta have that." And
Yeah.
so then I decided that I needed to have the meditation bed. I think I saw that at another conference. And so all of a sudden I'm buying these different procedures. I had never intended on doing this longevity biohacking.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, my lease at my clinic now excludes me from being able to do the hormone replacement therapy that I have been doing
Mm.
for 12 years because there was a wellness center in the clinic that was already offering it, and their lease had an exclusivity for hormone replacement therapy, peptides, and
Hmm.
IV therapy. I used to do
Yeah.
ozone blood infusion therapy as well.
Yeah.
Um, and so unfortunately, I had to stop doing it. So now I have to refer people to a colleague of mine that does peptides and hormone replacement therapy, and things like that because I can't offer it, but I can speak about it. So your question was, how do I think that hormones and such as testosterone and estrogen influence the outer appearance of the human body? Is that essentially
Yeah.
what you
Like, what
said?
I think from your experience, what have you seen? First of all, maybe how do you recognize hormone related skin aging? How does it come up even in conversation? Hey, I want to look better. You might want to check your hormones. And then number two, how have you seen, hormone replacement therapy? The reason we say estrogen or testosterone, it's because
Yeah.
estrogen obviously is going to be more in women. Testosterone actually is going to be in both, and obviously growth hormone in both as well. So how have you seen those impact skin health?
I think that there's a chain of events that
Hmm.
happen whenever someone starts a hormone replacement program.
Hmm.
Whenever I was doing a lot of hormone replacement consultations and I would talk to men and they would try to tell me how they felt. And
Hmm.
I would say, well, are you having trouble getting up off the sofa? Like, do you just want to sit on the sofa and not really go and hang out with your friends and socialize with your friends? And they're like, yes, that's exactly what I feel. Like, my wife and I used to have a lot of fun together, and I was motivated to plan things for us. And
Hmm.
now I just want to sit on the sofa and not do anything. And I would say, well, I can tell you before I draw your blood that
Yeah.
your testosterone is going to be low. And so, you start to get a man or a woman's either estrogen or testosterone levels back into the normal or the highly optimized range, and they begin to see a reduction in inflammation. They begin to sleep better. They begin to have more muscle mass. Um, they begin to have a drop in body fat. So there's a lot of changes that can
Hmm.
happen in your outer appearance from just getting on the hormone replacement therapy and getting your hormones back balanced again. But I think a
Hmm.
lot of it will show up in the color of the skin. People begin to look healthier when their
Yeah.
hormones are balanced. There's the inflammation can be reduced, and I do think that I've seen some really nice changes in people that have done, we were doing human growth hormone injections before
Hmm.
Lance Armstrong ruined that for the whole community. Do you know what I'm talking about? When he got on
Yeah, of course.
Oprah, he got on Oprah's
Yeah,
show and told everyone that he was prescribed human growth
yeah.
hormone, and then
And that gave him cancer. Yeah.
immediately the next week, every clinic that was prescribing growth hormone got a letter from the DEA and said that if we prescribed human growth hormone without an on-label indication, which anti-aging is not one of those,
Yeah.
that it would be up to 5 years imprisonment. So we all had to
Hmm.
stop doing that, and we all switched over to some type of like Somorlan or some type of
Yeah.
peptide. And
Hmm.
in the beginning, I didn't see a lot of changes, and so I see these people who are having amazing changes with human growth hormone, and you can very clearly see changes when someone has been taking human growth hormone.
Hmm.
And we're keeping people with an IGF that's within a normal to high range, but not in a range that we would be so much worried about causing proliferation of cancer
Yeah.
cells. But keeping them in what I would consider to be a healthy range, and
Yeah.
seeing amazing changes in people's skin from growth hormone. And then we had to stop. And then the Somorlan began to take effect, or begin to come on the market. And I just in the beginning, didn't see the same changes from the Somorlan products
Hmm.
that I was seeing from growth hormone. Now, there's a peptide that's called IGF-1 DES. Are you familiar
Hmm.
with that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm currently taking. And combined with my BPC
BBP
157, which I
157.
think has just has been a game changer for my plantar fasciitis that I have suffered with for
For sure.
years. So
Yeah.
my therapy for my plantar fasciitis is now hyperbaric, red light or red near infrared, and BPC 157.
Hmm.
And I've had such a nice change in that. I'm a big believer in peptides. I was skeptical in the very beginning about peptides, but I mean they're safe. It's
Hmm.
a different chains of amino acids, and I'm a believer in them. I wish I was a peptide guru. I wish that I
Yeah.
knew everything to know about peptides. That would be dangerous if I did.
Yes.
But I'm
Have you ever tried TB 500, TB4, TB 500 for plantar fasciitis?
no.
You
I'm gonna
should.
have to watch this show and get that. Tell me one more time what this is.
Thymosin beta 500 or TB 500
TB 500. Okay, I'm gonna find it.
is your BPC 157 for harder um, connective tissue. So your fascia is one of the so plantar fasciitis is basically the fascia under the foot for people who don't know is actually an extension of your Achilles tendon. It actually splays
Yeah.
back out and that kind of forms the bed that connects tissue under your foot. And what can happen when someone is very active, or by the way, someone's overweight. I mean, you're not overweight, so I would assume it's from activity. Is that the fascia can actually separate in the bottom of the foot, and that's plantar fasciitis. So since it's a harder tissue, normally TB 500 would be even more effective than BPC 157. TB 500, I have a problem taking because I express histamine more, so I have a histamine response to it. But even I will, handle being extra itchy or whatever sometimes because it is actually super magical.
Can I make a
Um,
suggestion for you?
yeah,
For your histamine. So
yeah,
I over my mast cells are
yeah,
problematic, and I have histamine reactions as well. And mine
yeah.
is I am particularly sensitive to heat. If I get
Uh-huh.
hot, I can't go into a sauna. I can't go into an
Wow.
infrared sauna. I can't go into a hot tub for very long. And
Uh-huh.
if it's any more than 80 degrees outside, I have a horrible histamine reaction. And
Wow.
so it took me years to figure this out. But an H1 and an H2 blocker combined completely knocks it out for me. And so an H1 is going to be like your Claritin, your
Yeah.
Zyrtec, your Allegra, and then your H2 is going to be, if you already know this, stop me, but it's going to be like your Zantac.
Hmm.
that you would take for your stomach acid. That is
Yeah.
that is an H2 blocker. And so I have to take that on a daily basis if I'm going to be anywhere that it's warm. And it completely keeps my histamine reaction under control. So you might try that with your peptide and see what it does for you.
Yeah, I will. One of the things that I do now, if I know I'm going to use a peptide that has in overexpression of histamine, especially H2, is is megadose, or not megadose, but high doses of quercetin, and that helps. But again, it has its limits, so I'm definitely going to try. Um, yeah. Anyway, listen, I am. It is very interesting to me how from what so chart the the road that led you to basically male enhancement. Like, how does this happen from? Obviously, it's right next door, proverbially, what
It's
you were doing,
close.
and yeah. But how did you end up, kind of focusing on male enhancement?
So I mentioned earlier that I started doing the P shot with Dr.
Yeah.
Charles Reynolds in 2010, and
Do you want to explain about the P shot for a
yeah, let
second,
me
just
tell you
for
about the
people?
P.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you about the P shot. So it's using platelet-rich plasma. Platelet-rich plasma is a procedure in which we draw the patient's blood. We use a centrifuge to separate it out into what's called platelet-poor plasma, platelet-rich plasma, and then the red blood cells. The red blood cells we toss. We keep the platelet-poor plasma, and we really concentrate on using the platelet-rich plasma, which is this little tiny little white buffy coat in between the two when they spin it down. Basically,
Hmm.
what we're doing is we're capturing your own growth factors, and then we're re-injecting them in to a particular area of the body that has inflammation or needs repair, and then we
Hmm.
let these growth factors begin the repair process. What it sort of mimics is, and one thing I didn't mention is that we have to activate this platelet-rich plasma with calcium,
Hmm.
and so the calcium actually tells the growth factors to go to work and to
Hmm.
start making changes in your body. If you have a knee scrape or if you scuff your knee and you see that yellow um, sort of wet gel area that kind of forms over that area before the skin
Hmm.
forms, and sometimes people think it's infected or maybe they confuse it with infection. That's actually the platelet poor plasma mixed in with plates with some platelet rich plasma that has started the recovery process. And
Yeah.
the way that it started is that the body releases calcium, and sort of tells it that there's an injury here and that you need to send some platelets to come start this repair. And so it's repairing tissue. So we injected it into the corpora cavernosum, which is the part of the penis that fills with blood and creates the erection. And the idea is that it's going to rejuvenate the blood flow and it's going to help with sexual performance, reduce the
Hmm.
possibility of erectile dysfunction, but also at the time, and it still is, they claim that platelet rich plasma injections or the P shot made the penis larger.
Hmm.
It did not make it larger. So
Yeah.
the protocol for the procedure.
I'll just say that they do it now with different procedures that are involving PRP, or activated stem cells in the blood, with cosmetic injections in the face. They kind of claim the same thing, where it
Yeah,
could
so it
replace
was called.
fillers or things like that.
So the vampire facelift is an example
Yeah.
of using it in the face. And
Hmm.
then the O shot is an example of using
Yeah.
it and then the
In the
clitoris to
vagina. Yeah.
have yeah, to have better stimulation for sex, for orgasms. So Dr. Runnels was seeing all these amazing changes with size, and I just wasn't seeing it. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing is that my clinic had been open for I guess about 7.5, 8 years at the time. I sent out an email, and I had probably 10,000 men on my email list at that time because I signed up on my website. I had a lot of people on there, and
Hmm.
I had this huge response of men that wanted to change the size of their penis. And it's the first time I ever had an interaction with a man and actually asked them or presented them with an option to increase the size of their penis. And there was a huge feedback of men that
Yeah.
actually wanted the procedure. But then unfortunately, I saw Fortunately, I saw some change in performance in the reduction of erectile dysfunction and increased sensitivity, but I did not see any changes from the sides. There's some temporary
Mhm.
changes that are seen because there's some swelling, and the protocol requires that you use a vacuum pump twice a day for 10 minutes for 6 months. And so if you're using a vacuum pump twice a day for 6 months, your penis is going to be bigger every single day because it's swollen from the
Yeah.
vacuum device. But as soon as you stop using the vacuum device, everyone went right back to where they were. So I
Yeah.
stopped advertising it as a size enhancement and told the people that I can only endorse it for the increase in sexual performance, increase in sensitivity. That was probably around 2012 or so that I began to pull back from making those claims. And then I began to see a lot of men calling me for the P shot, trying to repair bump dermal filler procedures that they got out of the country. Sometimes it was in the country, but they were
Yeah.
silicone, and it was a product called PMMA, which is basically acrylic beads that's injected into the penis for
Yeah.
dermal filler, and it's not made for that, and it's definitely not FDA cleared. Neither
Yeah.
the silicone or the PMMA are FDA cleared in
Yeah.
the US and should not be used here, but it was. And I was having people come in with these penises that were so distorted that if I had taken a close-up photograph and you did not know that it was attached to their abdomen and to their, between their legs, you would have never known it was a penis. You would have been like, "What the
Wow.
hell is this body? Like, what is this thing from this alien?" And they wanted me to try and repair them with the P shot because they were desperate and they didn't know what to do. And
Yeah.
so at that time, I thought there is no way in hell that I would ever endorse a penile growth enhancement procedure using dermal filler. I thought it was the worst thing in the world, which almost every urologist always thought that because they only saw problems, never saw
Yeah.
anything good from it. Then around 2018 and 2019, I began to see something different. I began to see men coming in with hyaluronic acid dermal filler injected into their penis, but injected in a bad way that made them lumpy and
Yeah.
uneven. And it was thicker. And, maybe that helped please their partner, but it definitely wasn't visually appealing. And it wasn't a
Mhm.
cosmetic outcome that anybody really would have wanted, but it's safe. The nice thing about hyaluronic acid dermal filler is that it's a naturally occurring substance in your body, and hyaluronic acid dermal filler is safe to inject into
Mhm.
the body. And one of the most important things about it is that it can be reversed using
Yeah.
a product called hyaluronidase, which is an
Yeah.
enzyme that will dissolve it. So a lot of these guys, I just dissolved it. I had hyaluronidase there because I had to have it on hand in case I was doing
Mhm.
nasolabial flow and we
Yeah.
had a complication. So I would just dissolve it for these guys. And then in June of 2020, when we were closed for COVID, I spoke to a urologist that was doing growth enhancement. I spoke to a dermatologist and I spoke to a plastic surgeon in Mexico City that's a friend of mine. They were all doing growth enhancement. And I sort of found out what was totally not working. I got some ideas for some things that were working, and I came up with a couple of things of my own that I think really have made FallowFill separate from and just a tier up, several tiers up from the other procedures. And I began to work on volunteer friends when we were closed for COVID in the summer of 2020. I told my friends, I was like, "Hey, I think I can make your penis bigger. If it doesn't work out for you, I can reverse it. So we don't have to worry about you having any type of complications." My medical director and I discussed it. And I started working on my patients. And they all had amazing outcomes. The way that I was doing the treatment, it was undetectable. They were girthy, they were smooth, they looked amazing. And so we opened back up like a minimal capacity in August of 2020, and I told some of my male patients that had been hormone replacement therapy or hair restoration, and I did it on them. They were all really happy. September, I put it on Google AdWords, and I was inundated with patients that wanted this
Wow.
procedure. I mean, I'm talking like I had so much that I couldn't get them all in. I had to stop
Wow.
completely doing everything else that I was doing. I had to stop doing faces. I delegated that to a nurse injector that I hired specifically for that. I stopped doing consultations. I was just doing girth enhancement, and I didn't have a name for it at the time. It was just girth enhancement, and so moving forward through that fall of 2020, we got to December. And all of a sudden, we had a cold front. It got cold in Dallas, and people began to come in like late December and early January with lumpy penises. And I was like, what
Wow.
the hell? Oh my God, I've been doing so well. And now I've got lumpy penises that are coming into me. And so, what it was is that the penis retracted, and very much like an accordion, the penis shrank and they got the baffles like an
Yeah.
accordion, but they were lumps in their penis from the shrinkage from being cold.
Yeah.
And so I realized that obviously the injection technique had been good whenever the patient was warm and there was no retraction, but we had to figure out a way to compress and extend the penis so that during the recovery process and as the dermal filler is becoming encapsulated so that
Yeah.
it doesn't move, that it heals in place where I injected it. So I began to start working on a post-care garment. It took me
Hmm.
about 12 months. I had prototypes all the way through. I developed a post-care garment. It's made of medical grade silicone. It's a sleeve. I got it patented. It took me 2 years to get the patent. I just got the patent letter. It's officially patented as of October the 8th. And
Hmm.
now I also have it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I have it patented in 47 other countries. And we are starting to work with the FDA to figure out how to get it FDA cleared. So that it's going to be an on-label use of my sleeve. And so my sleeve saved these guys. So once I started using my sleeve where I compressed and elongated the penis, no more did I have migration. And
Yeah.
now the result is completely undetectable. When they're erect, it's not squishy. A lot of procedures is squishy because of the place that they inject it into the penis. We have a
Yeah.
particular way that we inject it behind the fascia that holds the erection firm. You have to get
Hmm.
it behind there. If it's outside of that fascia, when you get an erection, it's going to feel like jelly, like
Yeah.
gelatinous. And so we have it behind there, and the erections are undetectable. They maintain their vascularity, and they're fantastic. So
Amazing.
I showed it to a urologist, a reconstructive urologist at Mount Sinai in Miami, and he said, "Bill, this is what we've been looking for from the
Wow.
dawn of urology. Like every man wants to have a larger penis. They may not want to admit it, but they do. And
Hmm.
if we can find a way to do it safely that's undetectable." He said, I can get you urologists that are going to want to inject this. So we
Yeah.
named it March the 12th of 2021. I did a little brainstorming and did a Facebook, I'm going to call it a Facebook focus group where I put some names on
Hmm.
Facebook and asked my friends to vote on it. And we came up with PhalloFILL and started working on a training manual and started teaching urologists how to do it. And now we've got 27, and I think that I've got 15 either scheduled or on a wait list to get trained by me to perform the procedure.
Wow. This is incredible. Let's. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about. I think most people are uneducated about hyaluronic acid as a substance,
Yeah,
and it got. It's funny. Funny enough, it is actually one of the most overhyped products in skincare, and
I
the
believe
reason
that.
and the reason is it's because it got its notoriety or its popularity from being a biomaterial for fillers, again, derma fillers and stuff like that, and people don't realize they are it's not the same substance, or it's not the same connections between the molecules that actually give it the properties.
The cross
So
linking, I think, is what you're talking about. Yeah.
exactly. So my question is, first of all, maybe you can explain what cross linkage is, and then how did you come about to choose a specific um,
Filler.
tightness of cross linkage? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Great to talk about this. So essentially, without getting into too much biochemistry, hyaluronic acid is sugar and water, and
Yeah.
it's held together with a bond that is
Hmm.
called cross linking. And every company that makes a dermal filler product, whether it be Allergan, Galderma, Revenus, Perlinium Revenus,
Yeah.
is in Canada that we use. And then there's also TSL that makes a product line called RH3, RH4. They all have their own patented cross-linking technology. And so it basically holds the molecule together, and that is going to determine the flexibility and what's called the G prime, which is how much the molecule can be compressed.
Yeah.
So those are two different components that we look at whenever we're choosing a hyaluronic acid. So if we're using something around the eyes, we want it to be more delicate, so it may have a higher G prime. It may have more flexibility. It depends on where we're going to put it. Sometimes, some places we want it to be more firm. In the
Yeah.
cheeks, we want it to be more firm. So basically, hyaluronic acid is a bond of sugar and water. But the amazing thing about it, and the reason that it's hyped up so much in skincare, is that it holds 1,000 times its weight in water. And so people want to be able to be hyperhydrated, and so it is a great product to hydrate the skin. But now they're advertising it as an alternative to dermal fillers, and you cannot plump the skin up. Dermal fillers are not plumping the skin. Dermal
They're not in
fillers,
the skin even.
yeah, they're below the skin, and they're
Yeah.
raising the tissue because of volume loss from fat generally.
Yeah.
So as we age, we're losing fat, and our faces they fall. And so we
Yeah.
are putting dermal filler under the skin to pull it back up and to fill furrows. So it's not in the skin. And you're right, your dermal filler, your hyaluronic acid in your skincare products is being misleadingly
Yeah.
advertised to replace dermal fillers, but there's no way that it can get down to the depth that it needs
No.
to do. And the volume that would need to be down there is just they're preying on people who don't have as much money, and they're looking for a solution. And so they spend a little bit of money that they have on a less expensive product with high hopes that are probably never going to be met. Or they're
Yeah.
definitely not
Yeah.
going to be met.
Yeah.
So that is hyaluronic acid. So let's talk about the reason that I chose this specific hyaluronic acid dermal filler. So they're not all the same. And I think that this is
Mhm.
also really important for your viewers who are having hyaluronic acid injected into their face, that they need to be really well educated on the reason that there might be different choices in hyaluronic acid dermal fillers. So the FDA requires that we report any adverse events to the FDA. And an adverse event is anything that the patient calls you and tells you went wrong. They could
Mhm.
call and tell you that they've got excess bruising, or that they don't like how the injector performed. That's even supposed to be reported. That
Mhm.
that is considered to be an adverse event. Um, there's granulomas,
Yeah.
swelling, inflammatory responses. There's all these different things that can happen with the dermal filler, and they're all required to be reported to the FDA. Okay,
Mhm.
now the FDA gets these reports, then they have to break it down into adverse events of relevance.
Yeah.
And so they break it into 4 categories, and that is going to be granulomas, um, non-inflammatory nodules, inflammatory nodules, and oh my gosh, what's the fourth one? There's 4, and I apologize.
Al-
I'm having a
Allergic
brain fart. I
reactions?
never. No, no, no. Let me tell you. Can you give me? I know you can edit this
Yeah,
out.
sure.
You can edit this out. Let me pull it up because it's in my phone. um, where is it? Ah, granulomas, hypersensitivity, non-inflammatory granulomas. All right, let me go back.
Yeah.
So the FDA breaks these total events into what they call events of interest, and those
Yeah.
are broken into 4 categories. Those are granulomas, hypersensitivity, inflammatory nodules, and non-inflammatory nodules. Those are the ones that
Mhm.
the FDA think are most relevant. And the occurrence of these events of interest actually happen depending on the type of cross-linking. So hyaluronic acid is very natural to the body. The cross-linking is not so natural to the body. And
Mhm.
so the body can respond in very rare cases, less than 1%, of patients will have an event of interest. But so in less than 1%, something could happen. And we expect it to happen in 1% or less. And we have to decide which dermal filler we're comfortable injecting into a patient based on how many of these events of interest are reported. So they took all of the dermal fillers that were FDA cleared in the US, and they took the last 600 adverse events. And then for each product. So
Yeah.
let's say it's Revidus has one product, Versa, that's what we use. Allergan, they have their Vabella, their Velour, their Voluma. Then we've got Refine, Define, Kiss from Galderma. We've got these different dermal fillers. And each one of those were broken down into each one of them had a certain number of events of
Yeah.
interest. So Allergan products, the Juvener products, actually have the highest. So one of their products, which was, I think it was Vobella, out of 600 adverse events, 127 of them were events of interest. That's pretty high.
Wow.
It's pretty high. And then
Yeah.
some of them were as low as like 15, like the Kiss and Define. Out of the 600 adverse events, they only had like 15 of them were actually
Mhm.
adverse events of interest. So that's much better. That's safer for the patient to know that
Yeah.
out of all this bruising, whatever that may have been reported, only 15 out of 600 were actually something that needed to be followed up with or treated.
Mhm.
The Revenus Versa, which is what we chose, had
Wow.
zero events of interest across the board out of all 600 of those that were reported to the FDA. So they were comparing a timeline of all of them. And so it's comparable. And so it's very clear that they have a better safety record. And the reason that it's better is because Revenus Versa is a Canadian company. The way that the company was formed is they were given a grant by the Canadian government to make a safer hyaluronic acid dermal filler. And so their scientists, biochemists, developed a perfectly round sphere of hyaluronic acid dermal filler, as
Mm.
opposed to every other filler in the world. If you look at the hyaluronic acid under a microscope, it looks like an amoeba, like it is an unusually shaped molecule. And so, even though hyaluronic acid is naturally occurring in your body, the hyaluronic acid in our body is round. And
Yeah.
so the body can perceive in rare cases that unusually shaped hyaluronic acid as a foreign invader and create a capsule around it
Yeah.
for causing either a granuloma or a nodule or just causing just inflammation in general. So having a perfectly round sphere that's injected in you just lowers your chance of having an
Yes.
adverse event of interest. And so we chose it for that reason. One more reason that we chose the dermal filler, which happened, they're both for the patient, but this one is the patients really like this one when they hear this more. All those other dermal fillers, all the Galderma and all the Allergan products, they're all 1.0 ml syringes. The Revenus Versa is 1.2. So the
Mhm.
patient's going to get 20% more dermal filler for the exact same cost. They charge the same for the syringe, but it's 20% more. And
Mm.
so they're going to get more bang for their buck using the Revenus Versa, which is what we use, and it's a safer product.
You get more bang and more bang for your buck.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, excuse the pun
That was
there.
a good one.
Anyway, okay, that's great. Now, fillers are a very interesting subject because, again, we spoke about some of the misconceptions around um, non-filler hyaluronic acid. Let's call it non-cross-linked, obviously, but
Mhm.
non-filler hyaluronic acid that is topically and then injected. Another misconception is that your body just clears it out completely at a certain amount of time, and then you need the same amount again and again and again. How does that work with a fallow Like, is it something that you need to come again and again and again, or every, let's say, 9 months, or how does it work?
Let me explain to you how it's injected so that they understand. Um, I'm going to give you the answer to what you're asking, but I want them to
Yeah.
understand something
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
first. So, you know, the water hose that you have that is fabric, and when it's turned off, it's small and you can put it into like a little
Yeah.
drawer, and then you turn it on and it gets rigid and it expands. That's how
Yeah.
your erections work. We have two layers of dermal fascia, excuse me, two layers of fascia. Leave out the word dermal. We
Yeah.
have two layers of fascia in the penis called the dartos fascia and the buccal fascia that act just like that fabric in the water hose. So whenever the penis feels full of blood, the pressure on buccal and dartos fascia presses out, and that creates the rigid erection.
Yeah.
So what we do with FallowFill is that we teach the providers how to make a hydrodissection between buccal and dartos fascia.
Hmm.
And so we create this little this little water basically pocket, if you will, it's saline and lidocaine. We create this pocket and we put the dermal filler in between buccal and dartos fascia. That means that whenever the penis gets erect, the blood flow comes into the penis. It's pushing against buccal and dartos fascia, and the gel that I've just injected is trapped in between there. So it still has that outer rigid layer of fascia holding it firm. So
Okay.
that's the reason that our erections are firm as opposed to some of the other erections for other providers are gelatinous is
Yeah.
because we get it behind the
Yeah.
layer of dartos fascia. So because we put the dermal filler between buccal and dartos fascia, there's no blood flow and there's no lymphatics. And so it lasts for a long time. It lasts, we tell people 3 to 4 years. It may be longer than that, but that's what we know is that it will last
Yeah.
for 3 to 4 years. The most that we've seen someone lose has been a quarter of an inch in the course of a year, and that's a quarter of an inch in circumference. And each treatment increases the penis by 1/4 of an inch. So if they lose a quarter of an inch over the course of 12 months, then they can come back yearly and have one procedure, and they will maintain, if not get a little bit larger, each year with their maintenance treatment. And so the idea is that they never lose this, but they
Yeah.
don't ever have to go through the whole process of doing the multiple sessions to stage and achieve the girth that they're trying to achieve. Because we don't make them as girthy as they want to be in one treatment. We're not going
Yeah.
to have somebody go home and all of a sudden be surprised and say, "Oh my God, I overdid this. I got too
Yeah.
much." We do it very slow and very staged.
Interesting. How so is that the reason for doing multiple treatments, or
Yeah.
is there a okay.
Yeah. So most providers outside of the FhalloFILL network
Mhm.
prefer that you only come into their office and take up 1 hour on their treatment table because time is money
Mhm.
for a provider. And so they would like to inject 15 to 20 syringes in a patient at one time. When you inject so much dermal filler into a patient at one time, you've got this very thick layer of dermal filler. It just doesn't adhere to the body very well. It doesn't stay in place. I tell people to think about having a tube of toothpaste. When it's full of
Mhm.
toothpaste, you can push the toothpaste around very easily. When it gets to be thinner, it's more difficult to move the toothpaste
Yeah.
in the tube. And so a thin layer of dermal filler in the penis stays in place better than a thicker layer. So our providers all do very thin layers. You have to come back and see us multiple times. And that is not because we're wanting you to come back multiple times and take up more time on our treatment table. We're doing it for the patient because the patient will have better results with having thin layers of hyaluronic acid dermal filler laid rather than one big thick layer at one time.
Very, very, very cool. That was great. I mean, it's a very interesting podcast. I love it. Uh, Now we are going to go because we're trying to keep it under an hour. I never succeed, and today is no different. But I do want to go. We have a new segment which we have our VIP clients. It's pretty easy to qualify. It's just people to buy who buy multiple times with us. And randomly, we shot an email to a cohort there to see if they wanted to ask questions that are related to today's podcast. So we chose a couple questions. Let's see what your answers are. Of course, you don't have to uh, answer if you don't feel that you have something to contribute. But here you go. It's
Okay, let's
you're the
see.
second person. You're the second person we do it with, so it's still experimental.
Okay.
So,
Like a
um,
game show.
yes, exactly. So I would like you to give us the top three actionable biohacks for beauty and wellness.
Are we talking about biohacks that someone can do at their house or biohacks that you have to come into a clinic to do?
I would even say, because your expertise is in clinic, and I think it's. I would just say, from hearing about the multiple treatments, it even strengthened me. It seems like you are very generous with your time and with the clinic's time, which I love seeing. So I would even say in clinic, just because this is where the most amount of hours you've spent are.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you my three favorite things that I do.
Yeah.
I like PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequency, and
Hmm.
that is to basically recharge the body. Have you ever talked about PEMF on your show before? Do your audience know what it is?
Yes, we've only spoken about the one that well, we can definitely refresh that. We've only spoken about the one that you refer to, which is low PEMF, because there are also high ones that are more for acute injuries, like the company Pulse or Hugo. But you're meaning the low ones. For example, I'm blanking on the name, which I
Bimmer,
think is the
like
brand.
Bimmer's one. Bimmer,
Yes,
that's a
exactly.
well-known one. Yeah.
Yes.
So I had the Pure Wave. That's the one that I sleep on.
That's the
And
one.
then
That's the one I thought you have, because that's the one you can have work for a certain amount of time, and it's also very flexible, so you could have it under your bed.
well,
Yeah.
what I also have at the clinic now is called Haleo,
Hmm.
HAELO, and that is an amazing device. It's a
Okay.
huge magnetic coil, and it has a 3 foot radius of where the magnetic energy goes
Wow.
outside the halo, and it has a lot of different settings for performance or relaxation or
Hmm.
vitality. I really do like that device. That's the one that we have at the clinic. So if
Nice.
I'm going to get into the hyperbaric chamber, I always start with my PEMF first at the clinic, and I do about a 10-minute session with PEMF. And the reason that I think it's so important is that we as humans don't touch the earth like
Yeah.
we need to touch the earth. I mean, we were made, our bodies are electrical and they need the magnetic energy from the earth. And we just simply don't get it any longer. Most people don't go outside barefooted. They're wearing tennis shoes or shoes with soles. We're on sidewalks. We're not touching the earth. We're in cars that have grounded because of tires, or we're in the first or second or third floor of our building. We're just not getting it. And
Yeah.
it's really important for our bodies to have this electrical charge that it gets from the earth. It does a lot of things for our body. I can't even go into all the things that it's going to do right now. I mentioned
Hmm.
one of them earlier, which was making your red blood cells separate. They become negatively charged. Um, Magnetic energy also lowers your pH. We're always
Hmm.
trying to be more alkaline, and so it will assist in the alkalinity of our body whenever we have enough magnetic energy. So those are two things that I think are really important. But I do it prior to my hyperbaric oxygen therapy, because when I get
Hmm.
into my oxygen chamber, I want my body to be able to hyper oxygenate all my red blood cells, and then I want the pressure, and mine is a 2.0 ATA, atmosphere absolute pressure, that
So it's a heart chamber.
is a hard chamber with
Nice.
it's two people and it's air conditioned.
Nice.
It's a very comfortable chamber, and I bought two. I bought one that holds two people because if like a husband and a wife are biohackers and they want to come in together, it's really hard. It takes 90 minutes. It's for a
Yeah.
60-minute session. By the time you get someone to pressure, they're in there for 60 minutes, and you got to bring them up
Hmm.
slowly back to sea level or to our
Hmm.
normal pressure. It's a long time. And so if a
Yeah.
husband and wife have to do it after work or whatever they can get there, it's just easier. I think it makes it easier for couples to be able to do it together.
Yeah.
And so that was one of my thoughts on doing that. So I like the hyperbaric chamber after my PEMF, and then I go directly into red light. So, I'm counting on my hyperbaric to increase my mitochondrial density. So I have more
Hmm.
mitochondria, reduce inflammation, push oxygen to my hypoxic tissue, um, and lengthen my telomeres, because there's multiple published studies that show that hyperbaric at 2.0 ATA or higher will lengthen your telomeres, and it's in the 30s. Like there's two different studies,
Yeah.
but it's like one's like 27% and one's like 35% increase in
Yeah.
lengthening your telomeres. It's just crazy that we have the ability to do this. Everyone should be
Yeah.
doing this. And then
Correct.
I like to go directly into my red light bed because I think that the hyperbaric does a lot for your skin as well by pushing oxygen
Yeah.
to your skin and reducing inflammation. The pressure on your skin is great. And then put them directly, or I put myself directly into my light therapy bed, my oh my gosh, my head just went blank. What is it called? You worked in light therapy, bio photomodulation.
Photobiomodulation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the
Um
brand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I wasn't gonna mention a brand, but yeah, photomodulation. And so I go
PBM.
yeah, so I go right into my bed and I get my red light with my three different beams of near infrared. And I love that people come out and they tell me, "Hey man, your bed, some of the rows of lights aren't working," and it's because it's
Yeah,
near,
you
it's
can't see them.
invisible. So yeah, so it's
Yeah.
that's what I do. I like the PEMF, H spot, and red light.
Okay. Fantastic. I love it. Um, Next question, the second question we have is, what is the best time to take biohacking supplements? Let's see if you have any thoughts around that.
I think it depends on the supplement. I
Yeah.
mean, some of them you need to take in the morning because they're for
Hmm.
helping your brain be stimulated, and you may not
Hmm.
want that when you go to bed. Some of them may contain melatonin, and you may need
Yeah.
to take them whenever you're going to go to sleep. I mean, I have a lot of different supplements that I take. Anywhere from NAD. I do take some BP 157. That's in some capsules. I also inject
Uh-huh.
BPC 157. I inject it into my feet. um, so I think it really just depends on what the supplement is that you're taking. But like,
Yeah.
if you're talking about a vitamin, the vitamin that I take is so many pills that it's divided into three different servings. So I take the
Yeah.
my multivitamin is like 18 pills. And so
Wow.
it's taken three times a day. But I don't think I gave you a great answer.
No, it
It's
is a great answer. I love that answer. And sometimes those are the answers. Like read the directions and follow them. I would say I'll give a interesting answer because we kind of before we started the podcast, we are talking about a little bit about spermidine. Um, Most people take spermidine in the morning. I take spermidine at night.
I'll
One of
take
the
more at
things is
night.
fantastic. Most people don't know it actually improves sleep, and that's why I take it at night. But yeah. Anyway, listen, William, that was a really really cool podcast. We've never touched on many of the subjects that we've spoken to. We didn't even, we didn't even. I think you're the first one who mentions the superhuman protocol. Um, that was developed together with 10x Health and Gary Brecka. So
Mhm.
shout out to them. And I really, really appreciate your insights. To finish the podcast, I would love to know how people can work with you. What are some what are how can they reach out online, and where are you located?
Well, so if they're looking for more information about my Falafel company, which is the
Yeah,
male growth enhancement company,
yeah.
they can go directly to our website, and that's Falafel, PHALLOFILL.com. One of the things that I love about I love a lot of things about my company. My team is amazing, but one of the best things about the way we have set this up is that you don't have to pick up a phone and call us. It's really
Hmm.
hard. I mean, we didn't even talk about the self-consciousness and the depression
Yeah,
and the self-esteem and the body dysmorphia and all the things that can happen from. I mean, that's a whole show within itself, talking about that sort
yeah,
of thing with growth enhancement. But it's hard for a man to pick up a phone not knowing who's going to answer the phone call on the other side. Is it going to be a man? Is it going to be a woman? Is it going to be someone who's going to think that I'm going to be laughing at me in the back of their head about
yeah.
me asking about growth enhancement? So we have on our website a number to text. And so you send a text message, and I have a team of 8 people, and most of them have had the procedure. There's a couple of females that rotate through that answer questions whenever our men that generally answer the question are like on vacation or something like that. But generally, you're going to get
Yeah.
one of our guys that have had the procedure, and they're going to be able to talk to you exactly how it was for them and what they experienced and what they saw, and then answer all the questions in the best way possible. If you pick up the phone and call a urologist's office that offers girth enhancement and you want to try and get questions answered, you're going to get the front desk receptionist that has to
Yeah.
know 30 different things about 30 different procedures, and they're going to be trying to juggle phone calls, and they're not going to be able to give you the time that we're going to
No.
be able to give you. So go to our website, send a text message, and you're going to be able to speak directly with someone. And then we have locations all over the country, and so we'll find the most convenient, closest location for you. And of course, I would love for you to come to Dallas. I have on a weekly basis 5 to 6 people fly into Dallas to see
Wow.
me. A lot of people listen to podcasts, and they want to come in, they want to see me. And so it's not unusual for me to have a couple a day sometimes that have flown in. So
Wow.
we will find a provider for you, or you can come see me in Dallas. And then as far as the biohacking, my biohacking clinic is in Dallas. And so if you're in Dallas and you're listening to this and you want to learn more about biohacking, you want to get mention this show, and you can come in and you can have your Penile metabolic test done complimentary. And that website is advanced, ADVANCED uyou.com. And you can also text message us. There's another phone number on there that goes to my clinic, and you can send text messages, and we can answer any questions you may have about HSpot, about resistance training,
Yeah.
exercise with oxygen, superhuman protocol, whatever it may be.
Fantastic. Well, William, thank you very much. That was great. I really wish you continued success, because you're doing amazing things. And yeah, and we're gonna have all the links in the show notes, including your social media, everything like that. And thank you very much.